Welcome to the BackPageLead Vidcast, and as usual, we have our footy guru, Mr. Wayne Carey. How are you, King?
Hello.
Now, word reaches us that you might be having a big celebration this week. Is that right? Should we be singing Happy Birthday for the big 4-0?
Maybe later this week. 35.
35? Oh,
Yeah, that's it.
We've got to change the footy record.
Exactly.
The DOB. It was an amazing weekend of footy. We had a coach banning mobile phones from his players, Alistair Clarkson. We had a player caught by TV cameras up in the grandstand having a beer before a game. And we had a team that we thought might have finished in the top four, losing by 123 points. Western Bulldogs, of course.
Yeah, put it all into perspective, and the mobile phone thing, in a way, look, I can understand where Alistair's coming from in terms of the players being focused, and let's be honest, we all sit by our phones now each day. I actually went to the footy on Friday night, what a great game that was, and halfway down Clarendon Street realised I'd left my phone at home and decided that it was a good thing, went to the footy and thoroughly enjoyed it without my phone because I wasn't sitting there texting, so fully focused on what was a great spectacle rather than probably receiving texts from mates and sending texts out.
So you felt naked initially, did you?
You do. But look, I don't think it'll be a regular thing from Alistair, but for that one-off occasion, it seemed to work for them. They won.
A great move.
But I think from what I read in the paper yesterday, you certainly, and from a few comments, you wouldn't want to be doing it every week, or you'll turn the players. You'll turn the players offside, no doubt about that. But no, work for that week.
Great,
so
a great move. Yeah, proactive coaching.
A
bloke having a beer in the
bloke
stands.
having a beer in the stands. Look, probably
Taylor Walker.
Yeah, Taylor Walker. Look, not doing. The only thing you should know that if he's going to go to a footy game, there's an AFL game on after that day. He's probably going to be seen. Probably not the smartest move in terms of that. Having a beer. He played the night before, kicked 5. I think it was Neil Craig said, they don't have to be teetotalers. He realises they all have a beer every now and then. I don't think it's anything wrong with having a beer, probably just not in the right spot, not in the right, not sitting there at an AFL game in the outer.
Yeah, and there's talk, of course, that he's going to Greater Western Sydney, which is not been confirmed at all, but adding all that up together perhaps isn't the greatest look of all time. But
look, I honestly thought it was blown. I was actually sitting there watching it live when they were talking about it, and I thought
beat up,
massive beat up, and it's turned out to be a bit of a beat up. And the fact that Neil Craig said he didn't have too much of a problem with it.
Yeah, let's stop talking about it then. Let's cut to the chase and talk about the big issue of the week, I think, which is the Bulldogs and how they capitulated just so meekly to West Coast, got to within 22 points in the third quarter, and then the wheels just fell off and they conceded 17 of the last 18 goals and were outscored 10 goals 4-0 in the last quarter. I mean, what do you make of that?
Well, what I made of it at the time, I actually watched that game. It was the last leg. I had to get that leg up to get my multi. So I watched that. I watched that quite closely.
Not that we encourage betting. Yeah.
No, of course not. A small multi, by the way. But it was the last leg. I was a little bit concerned. I actually thought the Bulldogs were looking okay. They sort of got themselves back into the game. But all credit has to go to West Coast. I think we've all underestimated how good their kids are. Darling, Kennedy, LaCroix, that forward line alone, and then you whack Cox, Kerr, Embley, all in good form. I mean, they're looking unbelievable. Glass is solid in defence. They've got all areas of the ground covered. So as bad as the Bulldogs were, I think we've got to give a lot of credit to
West Coast.
To West Coast. I think they're just unbelievable, and I was still thinking that they may drop off the wagon as the year goes on, but they've really impressed me. I think they're certainly a final 8 side now.
Yep.
And I think anyone that goes over to West Coast, you can just about mark it down for a loss. That's how good they are playing. They're back to that sort of form. When you're playing over there, it's going to be very difficult.
Well, we'll talk about them in a second, and they deserve some discussion. But the Bulldogs to capitulate in the way they did, I mean, and the heat has sort of gone on to Rodney Eade a bit already this week. In the Herald Sun and other publications. I mean, does a result that is so one-sided indicate that the players are not listening to the coach anymore?
Look, I wouldn't think so. I don't know about that. Rodney Eade's a very good coach, there's no doubt about that. I was watching him in the box. He looked very calm. We can see him get agitated and get quite angry at times. He looked quite calm. I think he summed it up himself. From what I've read, although they can be misinterpreted or cut and chopped or pasted how they like. But just he basically said there was nothing he could do. They looked helpless when West Coast got on that run. From midway through the third quarter through until the end of the game. I mean, they just looked ominous. They looked as good as anyone I've seen this year. The big ground, big open spaces, they're big forwards. The Bulldogs just had no one to stop them. Morris tried his hardest, but really they had no one. Lake's obviously in the reserves. They just didn't have any key defenders to pick up West Coast forwards. And not only that, I mean, they really just didn't get their hands on the footy. West Coast just dominated in all areas of the game. And like I said, the Bulldogs. Yeah, look, the Bulldogs now, like St Kilda, I still think they've got the ability to certainly make the 8, but it's going to make it very hard at the pointy end of the season now. You're not finishing in the top 4, so even if they do make the 8, you're probably going to battle to make any real impact.
Grant Thomas on television last night blamed the leadership group, and we said the previous leadership group, and had not left a strong enough legacy at the club. Brad Johnson, Luke Darcy, Rowan Smith and others, and now there was a bit of a leadership void. Do you put any stock in that theory? Well,
look, unless you're on the inner sanctum of the club, you don't know. So for Grant to be making those comments, it's probably a bit like the rest of us sitting here trying to make those comments. I'm not one that is about to make one, because I'm not on the inner sanctum to know. Very easy from the outside to take pot shots. Right now, they're certainly struggling. Is it a leadership problem? Like I said, I couldn't give you a evaluation on that unless I was in the club, within the club.
You just expect to see a result like that in a game involving Gold Coast, example, not a team that a lot of people pick to finish top 4.
Well, look, you talk about leadership, and you only have to look at St Kilda, and I really think their leaders, especially Nick Riewoldt in the last few weeks, you can see how hard he's been trying. They just haven't got the results. Now, that's not a leadership problem. That's the team lacking confidence and camaraderie and all of those things put together. Your leaders sometimes can be overvalued, and then at times, cop the flack when they don't deserve to cop the flack. It is a team game. So leadership can be overvalued at times when sides are playing well. They say, great leadership group, and all of that type of thing. But when things are going bad, first of all, it's normally the coach, then the leadership group, and unfortunately for the Bulldogs, they're getting both at the moment.
Well, final question about the coach. Rodney Eade's contract ends this year. Do you expect him to be there next year?
Look, are there any better coaches out there than Rodney Eade? I would say not. I can't see anyone that's sort of saying that they're. Look, he's been a sensational coach, and what he's done, and you can talk about what he did at Sydney and the way he left there, and then the Bulldogs to get them to 3 preliminary finals in a row, or whatever it is. I mean, the Bulldogs, I don't think have ever had the team to win a premiership. So for all those that think they should have got to grand finals and won them, well, I think they're dreaming. I don't think they've had the side to win a premiership. I simply don't. He's got them so far. Last year, a lot of bad luck. Still got them to the preliminary final. Had half a side. Had their best players out. Boy oh boy. I don't. I think that. I certainly think Rodney Eade's a good coach.
Let's talk about the upside from that game, West Coast, which I sort of interrupted you before. They play Collingwood this week at the MCG, but if that match was at Patterson Stadium, you'd give the Eagles a good chance.
Yes,
that's a question. Yeah.
No, the question, absolutely. If the Eagles, if they were playing at what's it called
Patterson
now?
Stadium.
Patterson Stadium, Subiaco to me.
What we known as Subiaco.
I'd be backing West Coast.
Yeah.
That's how good. I've watched a bit of Collingwood. Obviously, they're great. Watched Collingwood on the weekend against Adelaide. Great last quarter, but we're really getting beaten soundly by Adelaide until then. So if that was at Subiaco, I'd be backing West Coast. The fact that it's here, you probably, you know what, I'll probably still back West Coast.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
West Coast to beat Collingwood this
Not
week?
with any money, I'll just say that they'll win.
What is the minimum bet on the tab these days? 50 cents, is it?
Yeah, $20.
Look, I'm just interested in getting your thoughts about what appears to me to be a sort of a new order in football, and that new order is led by West Coast and Richmond and Essendon, who are not only three young teams that play the game at great pace, they're very attacking, but they also score really heavily. And it seems to me that it's almost an antidote to some of the footy that we've seen being played in the last few years by St Kilda and Adelaide and Sydney, where the emphasis has been on suffocating the opposition and scoring 12 goals to 8.
Well, I think sides are working out how to score goals with those presses. You know, they're moving the ball quickly, they're getting the ball in there quickly. We're seeing a lot of goals kicked. You know, if you want to call it Pagan's paddock, which got there was a term years ago. I don't know who came up with that, but
Jerry Healy, I think.
Yeah, well, you see a lot of balls now kicked into the space. We saw Nick Rewalt a couple of weeks ago kick a couple into space. We saw West Coast on the weekend have lots of space behind, players running back into that space, and we're seeing it more and more. And look, the bigger the score, more scoring, better the game.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really enjoying watching the footy at the moment. It was a great game on Friday night. The Carlton Geelong game.
Yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed that. The Blues deserve to win that one, but the Cats found a way to win. So no, the game's in a good state, no doubt.
Much more enjoyable to watch, I would say, as a neutral. My team not actually featuring in any of those big games we're talking about. Let's just talk quickly about Gold Coast hosting Geelong at their new stadium this weekend, Metricon Stadium. There you go. You've got to get your head around that one too.
Yep.
Yeah, Patterson Stadium and Metricon Stadium. There's no bad blood there anymore, is there, with Gary Ablett's departure? Is all that forgotten, or will there be some niggle? Or?
Oh, I think there'll be a little bit. There'll be a few comments, but you know, on Gary's home turf. So it's probably great that he's able to lead his new side out. He did so much for Geelong. I don't think anyone begrudges him leaving. He did everything he could at Geelong.
Yeah.
It's not like he just started, packed up and left. He had a great career there, and he's forging a new one at the Gold Coast, and should be a very interesting game. He's been in great form, Gary. So it'll be interesting to see who picks him up too. But I'm sure there'll be a little bit of niggle, but it'll be in good spirit.
Okay, well look, thank you for your thoughts again, and we wish you well for Friday, which I know will be a big occasion, and the cameraman wanted to sing happy birthday, but we talked him out of it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wayne Carey, and look forward to speaking to you next week.
No worries. Thanks, Charlie.
Thanks, Jonathan.